Let it crank for a while. What do you think?
Yeah. Your business. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Too bad Roy didn't bring a camera. He said, I see lots of cameras around. Yeah.
How long are you going to be there?
It'll be beautiful too because it won't be very hot. It'll be the coolest summer you've ever had. More blondes than you've ever seen. It's Kyle. He's going to go on a summer exchange.
We're married in Europe.
Wyckoff. Oh, we're around February. Mario? She's my next door neighbor. You know her? You knew her? Oh, okay. You talked to her?
Yeah, I'll be with you wherever you go.
Yeah, she's been I'm good. The name, Diane. I might wear my Diane and her two kids is all I know of here. You know Mary Ellen? That's my youngest granddaughter. That's Diane's youngest. And that's the next to them. He's going to Finland this summer. She's going to graduate from dental technician school.
What's your name, Joyce? I'm trying to read from way over here. My eyes aren't so hot.
That's Joyce and Kyle.
Kyle I met already, Joyce.
This is Mary Ellen. That's Dorothy's older sister. I did this is going to be I'm 83, and I'm not ashamed of that. Take it off, take it off. My mother died when she was only 52. My sister's gone. She died then. The next one. Yeah. Which seat you see right there? Jerry. Jenny, why don't you put Jack on the table? Under the table.
We sit on this side of the
So they aren't going to just walk over here first. I don't know if there's an hour. Walk over, just look over there, take over that judge. Lean a wall in that area. Thank you. Yeah. Are you?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, you went next door. Yeah, I keep asking about you.
Well, she's here.
She's right next door. Here, I just came around here all day and still don't know. We don't like to hear that. I'm always thinking of places where to go and things to do. We're tired of living out well, so there you go. Hi.
I can't find it. Oh, okay. You have me all upset.
Thought you missed one. Brother? Thank you. Do you know money belts? All you do is see that. That's a good mixture. That's an indicator.
You work right there?
That's when I had hair, Mary.
Why did you work this out your schedule? You took me up to got turned around. Oh, she does quite frequently. Oh, she really has to. She does. Yeah.
I put some money in my pocket. Oh, in a few years, it begins to tell. Okay? Oh, my mother brought it out for me. She said, I kept it. Now you can take it home.
Well, this
Because you like what you do. You got to
I'm up to it. Somebody's always standing in front of the camera. Wanna look? Light. Yeah, that light. I don't know how to get over there. Can't go around.
Listen, who's talking?
This is an audio recorder, don't you
Does that
think?
mean I need to talk?
Did you think you ought to welcome everybody here?
Thank you, everyone. Hello, Daddy.
I want to welcome everybody.
Jerry's going to welcome.
Is there, maybe I should move somewhere. Are you going to speak from here, Jerry?
Did you ask
Is he going to welcome everybody? Yes.
anybody at that table?
We're not going to run away with that.
Well, who invited you? Yes. Well, they included me. Yeah.
How you doing? Good, real good.
Okay. You get her to move just right, Rosie. I'm glad you ordered me.
People in it, huh? Yes, it is.
Everything stays on schedule.
That's at Ohio State.
So anyway,
Jay Burson's making a lot of news. He was on CNN this morning. Yeah. Or his story was. Jay Burson. That may make a better team out of him than he was there.
Lucky night.
He doesn't have the body. There's those big bodies, those white bodies.
You really don't realize that you're watching TV for this guy.
That's in the pea shooter against an elephant.
Not only huge, but they're super strong.
Yeah.
Ones that aren't super strong just get bumped out of there, bumped out of the
Well, they got a lot of good shooters on that team that haven't been taking the shots. They rely on Jay to do it for them. They open it up. They got guys that can hit that.
I feel like Detroit Pistons practice on campus. We can go over and watch them. Not when this regular season starts, but on their spring training, fall training. And so you go over and watch them practice it. You get right up close to it. It's like here and there. So usually they distribute it. A lot of times you're still running the drills when you first get there and you start go there one day and what they were working on that day to catch them out, fighting your way through a pit one day, and at the same time practicing keeping the meat that you're getting through. Really the thing was guard was supposed to circle guard forward was kind of coming along the baseline. Bastards here. Coming from the baseline, he falls out that way, like a low outside, and come out trying to get open around the foul line. Double. It was basically like elbow. That is exactly what it was. And they were pinching, it was all it's like this here. You get by
Yeah.
Okay. Being the center of the NBA. When you get really close to that white, huge at the top.
Must have sharp elbows.
Really strong in the upper body. Maybe he does it because he takes up so much space they can't get he seems to be chatting with kids. Never like to show off. I mean, on the court, it's so hard to show off. It was funny at the time when he was practicing the scrimmage games, he does some weird shot, get straight scoop shots or something. He'll laugh about everybody else and know his team. He's got a great person. Mainly, though, I think in there, he tends to he does a lot of the system. Maybe he keeps it. So to give him
Everybody, please take your seats, please. Would the Reverend Judy Jones please return back? Yeah. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we most joyously come and gather here today. We ask that you would be with us in this time as we celebrate the change in lifestyle, the milestone that Robert Wyckoff has met this day. Be with him and his family as these changes take place. Help them to greet with great joy and happiness the newness of their lives. Help them to step forward and to go on to better and fine things. Be with each of us here as we partake of this food that has been prepared for us, that our bodies might be strengthened, as we have seen one another and renewed old relationships and old friendships. Our souls and our love has been rekindled. And now we ask that you increase our friendship and our love to one another, and increase the bonds that tie us together with our family and friends. For we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Realize what you're here for today, but I'm going to tip you off. This is the
largest fundraiser that Bob has ever done. I don't know whether it's an honor for me to be here because I know why I was selected to be here. I'm the first one that ever penetrated the Wyckoff name and got one of their own to change it to something that everyone could spell. I can remember Bob way back when he was slender and nice looking and had hair. Now in his refrigerator he's got a big sign that says nothing eaten, nothing gained. His mother, when we stopped to pick her up today, she had all these old pictures and everything, and she had an old diploma he has. And I kept looking at it, and I couldn't understand it. So today, even though I knew that Bob was getting up in years, I said, Bob, how come your diploma's in Greek? He said that was the language back then. So much for that. I want to get down to something serious and introduce his family and introduce some of the people that would like to speak. And Phyllis did ask me to ask all of you who'd like to speak to keep it short. She has to get Bob home to take his nap. That seems to be the trait of his political party, I think. I know I'm going to pay for that. He will probably even bring out who my boss is. I just hope nobody goes up on the old Jefferson Mansion and tells him. I would like to introduce his brothers and sisters. And I was going to start with the oldest first, but I think she's left. So I'll start with the next oldest, who is his brother, Glenn. Glenn, would you like to say a few words on behalf of your brother?
Thank you. Never turned down a chance like this. Oh, no. The invitation that was sent to us said something about a toast or a roast for Bob. All of you that know me, and a lot of you here do, know that there's no way in hell I'm going to toast old Chrome Dome. Before I get into sharing a little bit about Bob, I want to thank Phyllis and Mindy and Mark for inviting Mary and I here today. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to meet some dear friends from years past. Some of them old shrine buddies that are here, and old boss of mine back there haven't seen for a few years, and some relatives. And it's just a powerful feeling of love that I have this afternoon. But now getting back to old Mirror Top over here. You know, when I thought about roasting Bob, I ran into some problems. You know, how do you shoot arrows into Mr. Clean? Huh? You know what I'm talking about. Hell, it'd have been a lot easier if it was Jake or Nadine. You know, my God, you got a library full of material there to work on. I could tell all kinds of stories. But it's Brother Bob, you know, the true Father Flanagan type. How do you tell an embarrassing story on someone whose idea of a wild night on the town is taking Phyllis to McDonald's at about 9 o'clock for Big Macs, and then you cruise up and down the strip to see what the sinners of Whitehall are up to. And of course you have to be home by 9 o'clock so you can see the evening news to see if a certain councilman is going to be on there with another one of their personnel problems. He never wanted to miss seeing himself on TV. Don't misunderstand me. Bob's not a square. Bob's a cube. You know, that's square in all dimensions. And most of you don't know this, but just to prove my point, and he's been that way for years. Years ago, Bob and Phil heard about Lamaze classes, you know. That's where they teach the couples the best way to have children. So they went because they decided they needed a couple. They needed all the help they could get, I'll tell you. That, Bob, in all seriousness, I am happy that you're here to have this retirement party after the serious problems you had with your heart a couple of years ago. And we're just very blessed to have you here with us today. And I want you to really enjoy your retirement. For Christ's sakes, relax a little bit, break loose, and do something crazy, you know, like paint the house or something.
Thank you, Glenn, but that proves one thing. You cannot talk a Wyckoff. We still got 2 more to go. Diane, I'm glad you're back from the potty. Would you like to come up and say a few words?
Well, when Nadine told me that she was going to have this, I should do something about it, I went through papers, magazines, everything I could find. This is what Nadine was talking about. She was the younger of the 3. And this was 2 years before my other daughter was born.
I told you.
Then I had
Watch your face.
of the family. When Bob was carrying the dispatch, he went on the tour to New York. And this is a picture, and the World's Fair in '39. And his picture is in this. Then you have to all look and find it. Then I have a picture. Well, I have a program of him when he was a junior in high school, and it's the class gave the play Faith, Hope, and Charity. And he was a butler in this play.
Good casting.
Here, Bob, you have this. Tell your big play. Then I have pictures of our 4 generations when my grandparents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. And Bob was a baby. So it must have been in the summer of '24. Then this picture is when they celebrated their 60th. And this is 10 years later when Bob was 10 years old. The thing that I remember the most was a neighbor girl talked them all into making Easter baskets out along the fence. And the neighborhood, all the kids in the neighborhood did it. They all went over, and it was a lot of grass, and they fixed, each one of them had their nest. So that night, the older girl that had planned it all went over and put all of the candy and everything out in the thing. When they went out the next day, all they got was a lot of dew on candy that they couldn't even eat.
That was terrible.
And Bob, I have a gift for you that was given to me to give to you.
somebody didn't pay any attention to the invitation.
Well, you haven't seen the gift yet.
Wow. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. The only thing about it is, it smells a little bit like smoke. Maybe it was a fire sale or something. That's a heck of a good sweater.
It won't fit you.
I bet it won't fit you.
I bet I know somebody.
It won't go around your belly, fella, because that's mine. Where'd you get my sweater? Huh? How long you had that?
There was no name on the gift.
It's in Christmas wrapping, isn't it?
Oh, it says big party.
By God, you gotta watch these Whitehall councilmen, I'll tell you. They'll take the sweater right off your back.
You mean this is your sweater?
That's my sweater. Yeah, that belongs to me. Just because I left it at the Christmas party didn't mean you had to pick it up and take it home.
I don't know how I happen to have it.
Well, I don't either. Boy, I sure missed it.
He was just asking about that today.
Yeah.
Hey, Glenn, he only got one gift and you took it away from him.
Well, I'm sorry about that, Bob, but I sure need it.
I won't say any more about it right now.
I would love to tell the story of the sweater, but I know that there's people here from Bob's church. I just can't bring myself to do it. We still got some more relatives, and I hope you'll all bear with us, because this Wyckoff still going on. We still have two. One of them is too shy to speak, but I think she should stand up, and so we can see what a fine offspring Bob himself has. Mindy?
She talks all the time. Why
Yeah, what do you mean too shy? What do you mean too shy?
Come on.
All I can say is that he was a really hard worker and Mom did all the work.
I know.
And now the one that's going to carry on the Wyckoff name. Mark?
Can't wait for today.
My father is a very patient man. I think the first time that I recognized his patience was he was selling cabinets for a kitchen company. And probably, excuse my nervousness, probably 7 years old or less, sitting in the car. He says to me before he gets out of the car, he says, "Don't touch anything." Being mischievous and loving cars, first thing I did was get behind the wheel. Well, pushing buttons and pushing knobs and turning wheels, I ended up 30 mile an hour backwards down the driveway into the ditch. My father was a very patient man. We went through times of long hair, rock and roll music, loud cars, bands with paint jobs on them, whatever. Tools that never got put back in the right spot. Sometimes was never found at all. He was very patient. I can remember probably being 9 or 10 years old. It's probably one of my favorite times with Dad. I was in a group, instead of Cub Scouts, I was in a group called the Y Indian Guides. And it was a group of fathers and sons got together, and the first job was for each one of the boys to name themselves an Indian name. So I got a name of Swift Hawk. I had my little headband and one feather. But it always makes me grin to think of Dad sitting around with 8 other boys and their fathers, wearing his little vest, which was too small for all of us, Mom had done all the fancy work on the design. He was Thunderhawk. He has lots of patience. I'm rather proud of my father. I think about it the most when I'm running around 2 minutes before we're about to have a celebration, and it's election day. And we're picking up 200 to 250 signs that say vote for Wyckoff. He has accomplished more than I can ever stand and speak and tell you. I look up to him. Thank you for all coming today.
As I said before, there's some of the Bob's church people here. And I don't mean to be sacrilegious, but I just have to tell this, and I hope nobody, about Bob, and I hope nobody takes it out of context. You've heard all these people get up and talk about Bob's ill health when he was younger and about Bob's ill health when he had his heart attack. I was in the family then, and they were worried. And I suppose I can understand why. But I kept trying to tell them all. The good Lord didn't have time for him, and the devil was afraid he'd take over. Mr. Hester, would you like to come up and say a few words about Bob? And introduce his friends, please.
Wheel, I'll take it. Bob, I gotta stand behind you, buddy, because you might hit me. This is a true salesman. Bob, you've got lots of plum, old buddy, and for a modern word, lots of pizzazz. Always with the right words, the correct answers. You know, you have the poise of a mortician, Bob. And the patience of a safecracker. And he plays a darn good game of bridge.
Sometimes.
You're really a salesman, Bob, but you know, they say in everyone's life, some rain must fall. And, old buddy, I found a leak or two. Bob, I was probably your last customer, wasn't I? When I bought a washing machine?
Yeah, I would think so.
Bob very graciously helped me buy a new Sears clothes washer. He even suggested we go down to the warehouse and try to find a reject machine that needs some repair, and we could get the plant department, put it in A1 shape and get a guarantee with it and save some money. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. So we go down, and here's all these rows and rows of white appliances, see? And I'd start on one row, and Bob started on the other. And then I started hearing these doors opening and closing, you know. What's going on? I look up, and here Bob was looking into machines. Here this great diamond Jim Brady of the appliance world didn't know the difference between a clothes washer and a clothes dryer. Well, we finally discovered there wasn't any. So he said, well, let's go into one of the vacant rooms with a table, and we'll lay out all the spec sheets, and we'll order you a new machine. I said, that's great. So we get in there, Bob lays out all the spec sheets, and he kept looking and looking and looking. Carl, I think I left my sales book at home. Super salesman. Well, we finally found a spec sheet that would cover the machine we wanted. Bob wrote up the order. We came to the agreement on the money and all that sort of thing. Did you know it was delivered, Bob? Did I ever tell you?
Oh, yeah.
You sure I told you? I don't know if I told you the truth or not, but I won't think I'll ever tell you the truth, that you wouldn't believe it. Bob, I hope you enjoy the Honeydew Club. Make good use of it, Phil.
I wonder if the rest of Bob's church group might stand up and introduce themselves. I'm sorry that I don't know you all by name.
It's us.
Want to start right here, please?
I'm Eileen Glover.
Katie Mullen,
Margaret Groves.
Mary Kilpatrick,
Jack Kilpatrick.
Esther Strickland,
Eric Strickland.
Betty Earls.
Russ Welch.
Carlin.
And while I'm up, I thought I'd be asked to speak, and I brought a speech with me.
Good.
I was out, no, I'll do it right from here because it didn't go to take long. I started out going to the city offices and the fire department and the police department trying to get something on Bob to talk about. You know, those guys are scared to death. I walked into the police department and I said, introduced myself, told them what I was doing, and I said, you know, I'd like to get some information on Bob Wyckoff. You know what the answer was? Who? I went over to the fire department, and a young fellow was over there, and I asked him the same question, gave him the same story, and I said, I'd like to get some information on Bob Wyckoff. Well, does he work here? I said, no, he's a councilman. He said, well, I don't know any of the councilmen. He said, wait till I get some of the old timers, maybe they know something. So all I've got is 2 blank sheets of paper. And I did happen to talk to one of the councilmen, and he says, you'll never find anything on Bob. He's what we call Mr. Clean, just like you said.
He went up to collect one day, and this gentleman said, Robert, he said, quit bringing me the paper. He said, I never have time to read it anymore. He said, I just have to pick it up off the porch and take it directly to the trash. And Bob said, that's okay, sir, I'll deliver it directly to the trash. To prove to you that this is a real Republican fundraiser, I think we've got some councilmen.
You're going to pass the hat, are you, Hanson?
The old compass. Here comes the man that will pass the hat.
This is an election year, too.
pass the candy.
Well, as you have indicated, Bob is Mr. Clean. And I think Bob kind of prides himself on excellent recall, his memory. However, we noticed something about 1.5 years ago in council. At our regular meeting, our president council, who's sitting back there, Mr. Bill Allen, Bob was moved up on a roster as chairman of the safety committee. He would be called upon first to announce the next committee meeting. So when he was called upon, it would catch Bob by surprise every now and then, and he was either give us the wrong day, the wrong month, the wrong year. And after a while, a couple of us got a little concerned, and after being embarrassed several times, the president of council would have to correct him and correct the day. And so we decided that maybe we always have a half-hour pre-agenda meeting in the back, that we would sit down with Bob and make sure that he had this date straight. We would tell Bob, we always meet on a Monday, and this is the date we're going to have. However, time Bob got from the back room to the front of the chamber, something happened, because we were still having this problem of recall, the correct date. So Bob, to kind of help you along, I brought this little notepad and this big clip you put on your refrigerator, and I want Phyllis to help you out to mark the...
Before I call on anyone from the next group of people, would all the councilmen please stand up, and their wives, we'd like to know who to vote for.
I'm Phil Allen. I'm $650 a piece. If you don't think our rear ended in a sling over that.
two things you want to remember about Bob. He is not bullheaded, and he is certainly not partisan in his politics. I've got some property down in Florida.
Hi, I'm Ron Nitzling. I also sit on council with Bob, and for the first time, Bob, I want to thank you, as they say, a man's heart is through his food, and I want to thank you for this fine lunch you have given us. And as you know, it's this joke between me and Bob, I'll eat everything. I'll probably have this tablecloth. So Bob, thank you, and best wishes to you.
I'm Bill Tompis. I'm also a city councilman representing Ward 4 in the city of Whitehall. This is my wife, Sheila. And best of luck to you, Bob.
Paul Burnside, I'm Whitehall City Council at large. This is my wife, Zoe. About a half a minute, I can recall when I was a small child, my dad said one time, if you can't say anything good about anybody, don't say anything at all. So I'm going to use that just for a second. It just sort of come to me, Bob. The first meeting that I was sitting in on council, it's nervous as you would with anything else. I'll never forget the one thing that Bob said, and I don't know if he even remembers what he said. He said, don't worry about anything, son. He says, just be yourself. And I think that reflects a lot on the person that made that statement. Thanks, Bob.
Right here. That's Ben and May. Here's some pills for controlling your jogging.
I really appreciate this. I want to see this go on record because I'll tell you, with the group that I play with, they're rough. They're tough. I don't know what happened that evening that I had all that luck because, quite frankly, as they'll attest to, I'm not that good a bridge player. But I fell into it, and that's what happened. Oh, to give me a set of good bridge cards. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I can vouch for Bob and Phyllis's bridge club being rough. Bob and Phyllis invited my wife and I up to play bridge one time, and I didn't know the difference between bridge and euchre, and I got stuck with a 3-card suit, and they haven't asked us back since. If there's no one else, before I get into the people that really know Bob, go ahead, Travis.
Just say a few words. It was very interesting. It was a very good prayer we had, in which he said he's going to have to change his lifestyle. Now he's going to have to start to work. I don't know too many good things about Bob. I play bridge with him once a month. One gentleman here said he's a good bridge player. I think he's very mediocre. The only thing good about going out there next time is that he's got some good, clean cards for us to play with. But the one good thing in his favor is his family. He's got a real sexy wife in Phyllis. That's probably the reason he's in the shape he is today. He's got a good son, Mark. When I'd go out there to visit him, I'd go in his bedroom and it was so dark I couldn't even see myself. And Mindy is a wonderful girl. When I was operated on in the hospital, she came down prior to my going into the operating room, talked to me, and she's a real good girl. You got a good family. My wife wanted me to say that if there's anybody here that would like to have their grass cut in 100-degree weather, just call on Thunderhead. Thunderhawk. Thunderhead, Thunderhawk. God bless you, Bob.
Is there anyone else? Just a minute.
I'm not
I'm going to get to you, sir, with
Oh,
another
okay.
bunch.
Thank you.
I'm going to save the good bunch to last.
I had no intentions of saying anything, but I'll agree. I didn't have to ask him to sweep my snow or cut my lawn. I would hear the lawnmower, and here's Bob out there cutting the grass. And if he's not sweeping my snow, his son used to always do it. And I really appreciate Bob.
There's a few other people that I would like to introduce, and these people are people that I know are very proud to call Bob Uncle Bob, better known as Uncle Shig. His nieces and nephews, Joyce Hutton, who is the daughter of Diane and Kenny Hutton. Kyle Hutton, will you please stand? Greg Wyckoff, who is the son of Glenn and Mary. Lee Wyckoff, also Nadine's son. And his lovely wife, Monica.
Up, Monica, up, Monica.
And our oldest son, Jay, who is also Bob's mouthpiece.
That's okay. You've already messed up. What about Sharon? Greg's married, you know. That's okay, Jerry. Stand up, Sharon. Stand up.
I do have a daughter-in-law.
Molly, and I'm sorry I put them. Ray?
Ray. Molly and Ray Gruby.
And he's the one that was worried about not knowing anybody here. Molly is the daughter of Phyllis's sister, Mrs. Holt. And Danny, I'll have to apologize. I don't know your voice.
This is my wife, Betsy. My favorite uncle up there.
Holy uncle. We know, Dan.
They don't like to call Bob Uncle Bob, but
He's very special
Phyllis's
to me.
sister and Bob.
Bob's very special to me. Whenever I need any help, he's always there to help me. And another thing, he fixes dishwashers in case you don't know.
Now this next group of people is going to prove something to you, I'm sure. I have sat there and listened to all these people who really think they know Bob Wyckoff. Said Mr. Clean, Mr. This, all these good things about it. They're here to kind of contradict this Mr. Clean. So the first person, Earl Barrett, would you like to say a few words?
Didn't mean to be first. I'm not one to giving any roasting of any kind, but I will eulogize this man. I recall on an airplane going to Chicago one time, he said to me while we were philosophizing about professionalism, he says, I know when I get up in the morning and my feet hit the floor, that I got to sell somebody something. Think of that, Bob. You don't have to do that anymore. Secondly, I built a garage for Bob some years back, and I stored some equipment there in his garage, and it's been there ever since. And you know he hasn't charged me one nickel.
Next person I'd like to call on is a member of the same unit that Bob was captain of for years, and who is now captain, Captain Bob Dawson. Would you like to? I know you won't have anything good to say about it.
It has been my good fortune to know Bob since 1972. I'm a Thunderhawk. Patience? I can't believe it, ladies and gentlemen. Thunderhawk and Patience never had much patience with me. When I first went into the patrol, he said, and they never let me march much at all. Not march, I was an apprentice. And he said, we were having our first ceremonial drill that I was in down at the Veterans Memorial, Bob. You probably don't remember this. And he said, by the way, you know, you cost me a lot of money. He said, you'll have to buy a tuxedo. Well, I had never had a tuxedo, so I went out and rented one. I went down to the Veterans Memorial. He never did let me drill. So we go to Atlanta the following year, and he puts me in a room with a couple of gentlemen that you don't know who was real characters, Bud Kunasak and Lou Doolin, Bob. Right, Glenn? And I'm just an apprentice. They've got me running all over their place, filling up their beer cooler. Put me in the hospitality room, and there I am. Lou says, clean up the room, and I went and got a sweeper. And he thought the maid was supposed to do that. I was the maid on the trip. I never did see any of Atlanta. Bob, it's been my good fortune to know you, sir. Your footsteps have been hard to fill. Thank you very much. Fellas,
We'll see you later.
thank you so much.
Next person I'd like to call is about the same age as Bob, Jim Reed.
About the same age as Bob. No, Jim looks younger.
Really, until today, I never thought or realized that Bob was so old until I looked at that paint of his, which is all white, you see, and us kids with hair on, no color at all. But at any rate, my point is, you've got a present there of a deck of cards, and someone said that you were quite a bridge player. Now this, I've never played bridge with Bob. But during our many years in patrol and our different meetings, we always found time to play euchre. And we older patrolmen, had a terrible time with Bob. He could not figure out the right bar from the left bar. So, this little token in here is something you might want to keep. It's an old deck of cards that we used, it's practically worn out, trying to teach you the game of euchre.
Next gentleman I'd like to introduce is also a patrolman. And the reason I say Jim last, he was always kind of concerned about Bob's health. And when he first heard Bob was going to retire, he came to me and he said, Jerry, he said, what can I do? He said, Bob's going to go home and he's going to be a couch potato. So we discussed it quite a while, and Bill is always getting up golf tournaments for the Aladdin Shrine. So he said, Jerry, he said, I'll take him out, and he said, I'll teach him to play golf. I said, good. So I saw Bill about a month later, and I said, well, how's Bob doing playing golf? He said, oh, hell, Jerry. He said, if he planted tomatoes, they'd all come up sliced. Bill?
I appreciate having this bell up here as one ding-a-ling to another. Our relationship with the Wyckoff goes way back. Bob and I started out together at Eastview Methodist Church on the board. And we were on the building committee together when we first built the Eastview Church. Our daughters grew up together not only in Eastview, but also in Job's Daughters. Mindy having been Honor Queen, and our daughter Cindy and she were personal friends, and they followed one another through the line. Our younger daughter Patty followed through the line, being Honor Queen in the same Bethel. And so our families have been close together all the way through. I never had any boys, and so we didn't have the experience of joining Mark in the group to be Thunderhead or Thunderhawk. But I want to speak to you about that Chrome, who called him Chrome Dome a while ago, and all of these other remarks about our pates and our little shiny tops. I don't know what you all think that means, but you've heard all kinds of expressions about the guy who's bald in front and bald in back and bald all over, and the ones think they're sexy and one is sexy, and et cetera, and all that stuff. But to get the real story of the forehead and the top of our heads that Bob and I share in our looks, and there's a few others around here that share it too, and you'll all be happy to know that there's a new belief in just exactly the purpose of that. And for those of us that have these, we're very proud to let you girls that haven't heard about it yet know, and our wives are already aware of this, Phyllis will attest to this, that's really our solar panel for our sex machine. I also had the privilege of being on city council in Whitehall some years back, and the only one that's around at the present time will remember those times are the Allens, when Phil was very new at that time, just as I was leaving, and I've been out of city council in Whitehall since 1970. And there's been a lot of changes back there, but it sounds like there hasn't been a whole lot changed since then. We used to have the pre-council council meetings too, and nobody could remember what went on in our meeting after we read the paper the next day, because whatever they wrote in the Columbus Dispatch was obviously the gal that wrote that attended a different meeting than what we had at 19. It never said anything about what we did. It's always different. So no matter how much rehearsing you do, it's not going to come out right anyway, guys. So just give up on that. Don't worry about it, Bob. The patrol is a very special group for some of us here. The Aladdin Temple Shrine has offered all of us great opportunities to share together in activities. Bob is past captain of that organization, I'm past captain of that organization, and Vaughn is our present captain of our Shrine Patrol Group. As a patrol group, we do a lot of traveling together. And Bob has always joined in the activities of the patrol when we travel all over the country. And back in 1966, my first full year in the patrol, and Bob was instrumental in encouraging me to come to the patrol, knowing one another through church and the fact that I've been in Shrine before but had never had the opportunity to be an active participant. He, along with Earl and another gentleman by the name of Chet Sharp and another gentleman by the name of Bill Summit, we were all East Enders, and we'd ride downtown together to patrol meetings on Monday night frequently. Sometimes we'd have trouble keeping the old car in the middle of the road going down Broad Street on the icy Monday night and all those things. We used to stop out at the bakery shop and buy the donut holes and the cheapest other things they had that were seconds on the way home, so the women would let us back in if we stayed out too late and all those kinds of things. But our first meeting that we took on a national trip was to San Francisco, and this was in 1966. And the Pearts and the Wyckoffs and the Leesons rented a car together to enjoy the activities of the California coastline. We were housed in Palo Alto, some 48 miles south of San Francisco, and so in order to be a participant in any of the activities uptown, we had one of two choices: rent a vehicle or ride a bus and go by their schedule. And so we decided to rent a car and do it our way, and we went uptown in the middle of the afternoon in the summer, and it was a beautiful summer day, and things were going so well for us that day we decided to stay on and enjoy the afternoon and evening festivities. Well, all of a sudden the sun went down, and for any of you that have ever been in California in July, it's winter. And we're uptown in summer clothes, and we went to a department store and bought some of the most beautiful sweaters you've ever seen in your life off of the sales rack in the basement. Now, you all know Bob's been with Sears Roebuck for a lot of years, but before that he knew where the bargain basement was in San Francisco, and he took us right down the stairs, and we bought great sweaters. Earl and I were just reminiscing about our sweaters. I'm sure Bob still has his, because he stole yours and he's trying to But we were just reminiscing. Bob, Phyllis may have done the same thing to you, but Marion and Bobby got rid of ours. And I can't believe we ever let that happen. It got away from us. We had some beautiful things, turtleneck sweaters and great big bold. I had a black and white striped one, and oh, they were gorgeous. Needless to say, the women wouldn't let us wear them again after we got them back to the hotel that night. But one of the great experiences we had while we were in San Francisco and taking many of our little side tours, we were out one night and decided we want to, after going out to a restaurant and doing a lot of sightseeing, we wanted to stop on the way back and have a little, well, we thought we'd have a cup of coffee or a cup of hot chocolate or something, and maybe a piece of pie to kind of cap off the evening. And we heard about all these gorgeous, spectacular places in San Francisco. And I tell you this story only to reiterate how exciting it can be when Bob is your leader. And if one of the things he decides to do in retirement is to become a tour guide or a travel agent, don't go with him.
we found this gorgeous Chinese restaurant in Chinatown, and was it Four Seasons? Is that the correct name? I think most everybody in the Shrine heard about it because after we did in the monthly minutes of the patrol activities, and it appeared in our Aladdin's monthly newsletter. But anyway, we spotted this gorgeous restaurant, and it had 2 or 3 big flights of steps leading up to the entrance to it, and so we climbed the stairs, and we met the gentleman at the top of the stairs and told him we would like, he welcomed us to the famous Four Seasons restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, and wanted to seat us, and we said, well, we just wanted to have coffee, and we had a tough time convincing him. What we wanted was a cup of coffee or a piece of pie or something, and it finally, after him conversing with 2 or 3 other people, we thought we finally got the message across. And oh yeah, so this way, and he's hustled along. Bob said, "This is it. Well, we got it all figured out. Now come on." We're following Bob down the hall, and the guy takes us fast. And we look in this big room like this, and it's gorgeous, about this size. And we went right by the entrance to it, and we're still looking, and he's still going down the hall. And we passed one room. We thought, well, he's really taking us back to a fancy place. We went by another room. We didn't get to go in that room. All of a sudden, we got back in the back, and he made a turn real sharp, and he reached over and he opened the door like this, and he says, right there, across the hall out there. Slammed the door. And we looked around, and we looked at each other, and we said, how the devil did we get out here? We were standing in the middle of the alley, 1 full block above where we entered. Outside, and he was pointing across the hall, across the alley, and there's a little sign over there that says something like Charlie's Coffee Shop or something. We stood there like 6 idiots and laughed. He didn't want us in that fancy restaurant for a cup of coffee for nothing. We proceeded to go over and go in this particular restaurant, and we finally told them what we wanted, and the lady came around and picked up all the silverware from around the table, so I thought they looked at Bob. They left us 1 cup for coffee and 1 fork for a piece of pie, and that was it. And we had a great time, but we determined after that Bob was never going to be our leader on a restaurant. You've made a few harsh comments about Bob. We'll not tell you all the down and dirty things about all of our shrine trips, because we'd have the same problem you did. We'd have an awful time finding anything out down and dirty about Bob. He's joined us in a lot of the activities, and we've had a real good time. I just want to say that he tells me that at his house, he rules the roost. But I want to tell you, Phyllis rules the rooster. Has always been very neat and tidy, and he's always kept his uniform in great shape, never ever let it get dirty, never ever look anything but perfectly neat, and I'm sure he intends to keep it that way, because he tells me, in my house I wear the pants, and since he's retired he also wears an apron to keep the pants clean. We wish you well in your retirement. Good luck to you. And don't let them tell you what that's for, except that's your sex machine.
I still have 2 or 3 more introductions, and then I'll turn it over to old Shagan, and he can talk the rest of the day, and we'll go home. There's a lady here that's not only a relative of Bob's, but a very dear friend, and has been a friend and relative. I guess you've been relatives ever since you were born. Mary Ellen, would you like to say a few words? Oh, boy.
I just happen to be one of Bob's older cousins. Not the oldest. And after coming back from Singapore, I heard this story about a man that was out walking, and I learned later that Bob walks about every day. And then I found out through the grapevine that he had been knocked down by a dog. And then he, starting to bounce up, of course he fell on his face, and you know, there was other parts of the anatomy that hit the ground first. So when he got up, along comes a small car and knocked him back down again. And he said, some other people picked him up and set him up, and he said, "Are you all right, sir?" And he said, "Yeah, it didn't bother me when the dog hit me, but that tin can he had tied on his tail was really rough."
Thank you, Marion. The next two people, after you hear their name, you'll know why I've got a million stories I can tell, but I won't. But Judy and Dave Jones, who are also Bob's cousins. Would they please stand? And I'm not going to say anything about Jonestown or anything like that. Bob, before I know...
They're our ministers. We have our own ministers in the family.
Oh, yeah.
We need them.
There were three.
We've got our own
Yeah,
ministers, our
three
own lawyers, our own gangsters, or, you know. Anything you want, and Wyckoffs have got. But Bob, I know we've been rough on you. But yesterday, as I was sitting around, and when my wife told me I had to accept this responsibility, I got to think of what I should say. And I thought back many years ago when I remember reading a poem. And I clipped it out, and I thought, someday I will run into the man that will be just right for.
Keep it clean.
So it really is, and I'm having a hell of a time being serious. So, Bob, this is actually what your brothers, your sisters, your brother-in-laws, especially I think. It takes a special kind of person to care enough to take the time for others. It takes the kind of person who, in a quiet and sincere way, will do whatever it takes to help somebody out. Someone who knows that giving makes living a pleasure, and thoughtfulness is the best measure of a person.
First, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking time out to come out here today. And especially to my wife, who's the host of this party. It's up to her. She thought it up, decided we should do it. I thought it would be nice because I always like parties. A lot of people measure wealth by dollars. But I can honestly say I measure my wealth by friends. And I think this room attests to my great, great wealth. As for my family, I don't know whether to apologize to all of you who haven't been acquainted before or not, but I love them all. They're a great group. Since I'm the senior member right now, the loss of my father, they do listen when I speak, although many times they don't pay any attention to what I say. But we have a good time wherever we go. We debated a long while whether we should have the little ones in, but if I have to apologize for my family now, boy, I don't know what I can say. We had those little rugrats in here. They're a great bunch, and they follow in their footsteps. Representing, as you all know, is our close friends, our neighbors, our bridge club, the Troll, along with the family and also the official family in Whitehall, the council people. It's always a pleasure to be with them, and I look forward every day to something different. There's about 3 or 4 times in life that you change directions. And this one that I'm heading out on right now probably is the biggest change. And I think probably the most rewarding. You go to school and you graduate and you think, boy, what am I going to do? Earn a living and so on. That's your first change. The next change is when you get married and you select a mate to share your joys and your pleasures and your sorrows. That's a big change. Then when you start raising a family and you add the activity around the house and more responsibility and so on, that's a big change. And then when you get to the point that I am now, setting back and getting away from the pressures of the alarm clock, getting away from pressures that you've acquired in your workplace, in doing your job and so on. I think the last change, this retiring, is probably the most rewarding because you feel physically and mentally a great relief from the pressure that's taken away from you, and once again you have a chance to look down the road to see what you can do and have the freedom to do and enjoy. I haven't quite got used to it yet. I haven't really got started on that job jar. And boy, I got a lot of it. But I'll get to it, so on. But it's really great. And I say to all of you who are nearing that time in your life, as many has told me, I never really believed it, do it when you can. Because it's a great time in life. It's a completely different outlook. It really hasn't cleared up for me yet, but I'm sure it will. I think in the days ahead, as far as what we will do, I sure want to stay around where we are now because I don't know what I'd do to actually leave my neighbors. We have neighbors here that wanted to move, and we talked them out of it because, hey, it's a good neighborhood. We don't dare disturb anything. Our bridge club, even though maybe sometimes they like to throw me out of it, we still keep going because you'd sure miss it. The time rolls around that you couldn't get together and enjoy it. Our group at church, it's really important. It fills a great need in your life to have a group like that. When I was sick, there wasn't a day went by that I didn't have cards come in and remind you that you're in their prayers, that you're being thought of. So that's why I say I measure my wealth in friends. And I'm not done acquiring them yet. So thank you for coming, and I'd like to personally thank my wife. I have nothing more. If there's anybody else that would like to say a few words, fine. I've enjoyed the gifts. I've enjoyed a lot of the comments. Some of them I can assure you is only borrowed. I think they already knew that. Basically my family. people in the patrol. We've seen a lot of good times together in life. There's a lot of people you can have a lot of fun with. There's never a finer group that ever walked on earth than Aladdin Shrine Patrol. They're a great group. Again, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Safe journey home.
Pardon?
Safe journey home.
Yes. Drive safely going home.
Reverend Jones, before we leave, could you please give the benediction?
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Oh Lord, go with us now as we leave this place, filled with joy and happiness, filled with memories, and filled with new hope for what is to come. Guard and protect each one of us as we leave this place, that we might gather once again to join and to share sometime in the near future. May the God bless you and keep you all the days of your life. Amen.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
I'm sorry that he didn't know.